President Trump's legal team dealing with the Russia investigation saw another change Wednesday. Ty Cobb is retiring and being replaced by an attorney who helped defend President Clinton. Here's Major Garrett.
Ty Cobb's departure and the arrival of Clinton impeachment lawyer Emmet Flood signals President Trump's girding for battle with special counsel Robert Mueller. To underscore the point, the official White House statement said Flood would represent the president in, quote, the Russia witch hunt. Cobb counseled cooperation with Mueller and by January had arranged document transfers and interviews with top White House officials. Ever since, negotiations have focused on a potential interview with Mr. Trump. In the background was the threat Mueller could subpoena the president if talks broke down. Flood's arrival adds a lawyer experienced with high-stakes showdowns with special prosecutors. During a January chat with reporters, the president said he was willing to be interviewed under oath.
I'm looking forward to it, actually.
You want to? Do you have a date set?
Here's a start, just so you understand. There's been no collusion whatsoever.
Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani, also on the president's legal team, told the Washington Post any interview would be, quote, 2 to 3 hours around a narrow set of questions. A list of more than 40 questions drafted by Trump's legal team surfaced this week. They focused on potential obstruction of justice tied to Mueller's Russia investigation. On Twitter this morning, the president said, there is no obstruction of justice. That is a setup and trap.
You know, Giuliani can poke this lion as much as he wants, but you have to be careful about what you ask for.
George Washington University law professor and impeachment expert Jonathan Turley.
There are questions on that list that are sleepers, that look like innocuous housekeeping questions, but they could be the most lethal of all of the questions.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett is at the White House. Major, how do these changes affect whether the president will sit for an interview with the special counsel?
They don't change things in the main, Elaine, because the incentives for an interview and some compromise exist on both sides. And here's what I mean by that. Mueller's team knows that if they subpoena the president because talks have broken down, they now will face an attorney, Emmet Flood, who's experienced in toiling and scraping with a legal prosecuting team up against the sitting United States president. He also knows, that is to say, Flood, that there isn't really well-defined legal history or precedent about the subpoena of a sitting president. So this would likely go to the Supreme Court. And there's no guarantee for Mueller's team that whatever decision is reached would be in their favor. So they have an incentive to compromise. Similarly, the president's legal team also has an incentive to find a way to an interview. Why? Because they know if it does become a subpoena battle, they take it to the Supreme Court, that merely extends the Mueller investigation for months and months and months. And in the process, the president, by fighting the subpoena, might suggest in the court of public opinion, nearly as important as any potential court of legal opinion, that he's afraid of sitting down for Mueller, after saying for months and months he has nothing to be afraid of. So the incentives are there. But the talks continue. They're working through a lot of issues, questions, range of topics, and length of interview. That doesn't guarantee that there will be an interview, and there are certainly those in the president's orbit who are counseling him not to sit down. But I don't think Emmet Flood's arrival at the White House says there won't be an interview. It just asserts that that interview is probably going to be as aggressively negotiated on behalf of the president as it ever has been in the past.
So I think that answers my next question in part. Rudy Giuliani also told the Washington Post that Jay Sekulow, another member of Trump's legal team, felt they needed someone more aggressive. When it comes to legal approaches, does Emmet Flood seem more aggressive than Ty Cobb?
Well, Ty Cobb is no shrinking violet. He is an experienced lawyer, former prosecutor, well-known, well-established corporate lawyer as well. He is not a babe in the woods, but he did, inside the White House, both on behalf of the institution of the presidency and as one of the president's chief legal advisors, counsel cooperation. Work with the special counsel, provide all the documents, arrange all the interviews, because in the end, Mr. President, you have nothing to hide. He also counseled the president. This is part of the counsel from Ty Cobb that wasn't always followed. Don't tweet very much about this. Don't engage with Mueller or the investigation on Twitter. Don't act as if you're guilty. He had some success, some failures on that point. The other part about Ty Cobb worth remembering is he was the strongest and most repetitive voice inside the White House, counseling the president not to even give a moment's consideration, serious consideration that is, to firing Mueller. So, on the aggressiveness side, what you have with Emmet Flood is someone who dealt with an impeachment case before, dealt with all the underlying questions and prosecutorial pressure that Ken Starr placed on Bill Clinton and his White House. So he knows that part of the law. And there are not many people in Washington who are lawyers who have that particular kind of experience. So that does matter. And as Ty Cobb told me earlier today, he doesn't mind being characterized as a peacemaker. He wanted to make peace. Emmet Flood's arrival suggests that he would also like to have peace, but it'll be negotiated on the president's terms. And if it isn't peaceful, he knows how to fight the legal fight.
Major, you've also been reporting on White House counsel Don McGahn's future. How does that relate to this latest shakeup?
Well, so it's worth pointing out, Elaine, that for, I would say, 4 or 5 or 6 weeks, the conversation about Ty Cobb's long-term future as the White House lawyer, and it's important to stress, he was not the president's personal lawyer. He was the lawyer on behalf of the institution of the White House. So that meant he was looking out for the president's interests, but also the interests of the White House, separate from the White House counsel's office, that he was getting nearer to the end of his term here, that he was looking for a way to move out. Emmet Flood, about the same time, 6, 7, 8 weeks ago, was described as someone the president was looking at very seriously about coming in. I am told that the way this deal sort of was finally constructed was Emmet Flood received an assurance from the president that in the not too distant future, time not really specifically determined, he will replace Don McGahn as White House counsel. That's a significant position in the legal community. It's a significant position in the White House. And that was the final incentive, if you will, to bring Emmet Flood in the White House. Again, no timetable on that, but that is, a White House official tells me, the understood chain of events. Flood comes in, he's here for a period of time, and then replaces Don McGahn as White House counsel.
Interesting. Okay. Major Garrett at the White House. Major, thank you.
Sure.